The contractions had started at 3 a.m., 2 weeks early. James had panicked, throwing random items into the hospital bag while I breathed through the pain, trying to remember everything we'd learned in birthing class. His hands shook as he helped me to the car, whispering apologies for forgetting to gas up the tank, for not having the car seat installed yet, for being a mess when I needed him steady. "It's okay," I'd told him between contractions. "We're doing this together." 23 hours later, our daughter was born. Lily Marie Thompson, 6 pounds, 4 ounces of perfect. James cried harder than she did, holding her like spun glass, terrified and amazed in equal measure. "She looks like you," he whispered, tracing her tiny fingers. "Beautiful like her mama." I should have known something was wrong when he started checking his phone during my recovery. The furtive glances, the stepped-out conversations, the way he jumped when I asked who was calling. But I was exhausted, hormonal, learning to breastfeed while my body felt like it had been through a blender. I dismissed it as new parent jitters. "My mom wants to help," he said on day 2, not meeting my eyes. "She could stay for a few weeks, help with the baby." Helen Thompson, helping was like asking a hurricane to organize your closet. In the 5 years James and I had been married, she'd helped by reorganizing my kitchen so I couldn't find anything, helped by telling James the first was gaining too much weight during pregnancy, helped by suggesting we name the baby after her mother instead of mine. "We discussed this," I reminded him gently, shifting Lily to the other breast. "We wanted to do the first few weeks ourselves. Bond as a family." "Right. Of course." But he was already texting someone, fingers flying over the screen. The hospital discharged us on day 3. I was sore, bleeding, wearing the glamorous mesh underwear they give new mothers, but I was ready to go home. Ready to start our life as a family of 3 in the little craftsman house we'd bought last year. The one with the nursery I'd painted soft yellow. The one where James had assembled the crib wrong 3 times before getting it right. He was quiet on the drive home. Lily slept in her car seat, properly installed now, while I watched the familiar streets roll by. Oak Avenue. Maple Street. The turn onto our cul-de-sac where Mrs. Chun would probably bring soup later, where the Hendersons' kids would want to see the baby. James pulled into our driveway, and my first thought was that we'd been robbed. The living room curtains were different, heavy brocade instead of the light cotton I'd chosen. But criminals don't usually redecorate. "Stay here," James said quickly. "I'll get the car seat." But I was already out, moving slowly but determinately toward my front door. I'd been gone 3 days. 3 days to have a baby, and someone had changed my curtains. My key slid into the lock but wouldn't turn. I tried again, jiggling it the way you do when locks get sticky. Nothing. The door opened from the inside. Helen stood there in my grandmother's apron, the one I kept hanging on the pantry door. Her silver hair was perfectly coiffed, her makeup flawless, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Clarissa," she said, like she was greeting a door-to-door salesman. "You're early." "Early." I stared at her, then at my unchanged key, then at the interior of my house visible behind her. My couch had been replaced with something floral and stiff. My photos were gone from the walls. "Helen, what's going on? Why doesn't my key work?" "Oh, we had to change the locks. Security, you understand. Can't be too careful with a new baby." She didn't move from the doorway. Didn't invite me into my own home. I looked past her, spotted James hovering near the stairs with Lily's car seat. He'd gone in through the garage. Left me standing on my own front porch like a stranger. "James?" He didn't answer. Didn't even look at me. "Well," Helen continued, her voice taking on that false sweetness she used when she was about to say something vicious. "This is my son's house now. He's decided it's best if I help full-time. And really, Clarissa, single mothers aren't welcome here." The words didn't make sense. I'd just given birth. James was right there, holding our daughter. We were married. We had a mortgage together. My name was on the deed. Single mother? I repeated stupidly. "Helen, I think the lack of sleep is getting to you. James and I are getting divorced." She said it triumphantly, like she'd won a prize. "He's already spoken to a lawyer. The papers will be filed tomorrow. So really, you should make other arrangements." I looked at James then, really looked at him. He stood behind his mother like he had at our wedding when she'd worn white, like he had at every family dinner where she'd criticized my cooking, like he had during my entire pregnancy when she'd questioned every decision from my doctor choice to my birth plan. "James?" My voice came out small, confused. "What is she talking about?" He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there made my knees weak. Shame, yes, but also resolve. The weak, terrible resolve of a man who'd chosen the easy path. It's better this way, he mumbled. Mom knows about babies. She can help better then. I mean, you need to rest. You can stay with your sister. My sister lives in Portland. The absurdity of it hit me. I was standing on my porch, still bleeding from childbirth, being evicted from my own home by my mother-in-law while my husband, the man who'd cried at our daughter's birth 3 days ago, stood silent. James, this is insane. We have a newborn. We have a home. We have a marriage. Had, Helen corrected. Past tense. And really, the house is in James's name. No, it's not. The fog of exhaustion and hormones cleared slightly. Both our names are on the deed. Both our names are on the mortgage. I put down half the down payment. Helen's smile flickered. Well, possession is 9/10 of nothing. I pulled out my phone, muscle memory navigating to the contact I needed. Hi, Sharon. It's Clarissa Thompson. I need a sheriff at my house. I'm being illegally evicted from my own home. Yes, I have proof of ownership. No, I'm not in danger, just locked out. Thank you. I hung up and looked at Helen. Sheriff's department says 10 minutes. You called the police? James finally spoke, indignant. Clarissa, that's... What? Excessive? I just pushed your daughter out of my body 3 days ago, and I'm locked out of my own home. I think calling the sheriff is pretty reasonable. I moved past shock into anger. Clean, clarifying anger. Did you plan this? The whole time I was in labor, were you planning this? He couldn't answer, which was answer enough. A car pulled up. Not the sheriff. Mrs. Chun from 2 doors down, carrying a covered pot. Clarissa, you're home. I made, she stopped, taking in the scene. Me on the porch, Helen in the doorway like a guardian gargoyle, James visible behind her. Is everything all right? No, I said simply. Helen changed the locks while I was giving birth and says I can't come in my own home. Mrs. Chen's face went through several expressions before settling on volcanic fury. She was a tiny woman, barely 5 feet, but she'd raised 4 boys and commanded a classroom for 30 years before retiring. Helen Thompson, she said in her teacher voice. You step aside right now and let this new mother into her home. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't. Mrs. Chen set down her pot and pulled out her phone. Lisa? It's Mom. Bring your camera and get over to the Thompsons' house. We've got an illegal eviction in progress. Yes, the news station camera. More neighbors appeared. The Hendersons from across the street. Mr. Patel from the corner house. Word spread the way it does in small neighborhoods, and within minutes, half the street was on my lawn. Is this true? Mr. Henderson asked. He was a retired cop, still built like he could break down doors. They locked you out of your own home? With a 3-day-old baby, Mrs. Chen added loudly, while she's still recovering from childbirth. The sheriff's car pulled up just as Mrs. Chen's daughter arrived with a news camera. Helen's face had gone from smug to uncertain to panicked in the span of 5 minutes. Deputy Martinez was young but thorough. He took one look at the situation, me in my post-pregnancy clothes, Helen in my apron in my doorway, the crowd of neighbors, and sighed. Ma'am, he addressed me. Can you prove you live here? I pulled up my phone, showing him the deed, the mortgage statements, my driver's license with this address. I went into labor 3 days ago. While I was in the hospital having our baby, my mother-in-law apparently moved in and changed the locks. He turned to Helen. Ma'am, did you change the locks on a property you don't own? My son owns. Is your name on the deed? Well, no, but... Then you need to step aside and let the legal resident into her home. His voice brooked no argument. Now, Helen looked at James, waiting for him to save her. He stared at his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. This is ridiculous, Helen sputtered. I'm trying to help my son with his baby. Our baby, I corrected. And you're trespassing in our home. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to move aside. If the homeowner wants you removed from the property, I'll have to escort you out. The news camera was rolling. The neighbors were watching. Helen had no choice but to step aside. I walked into my home, my violated, rearranged home, and surveyed the damage. She'd been thorough. My books reorganized by color instead of author. My kitchen rearranged. My photos replaced with pictures of James as a child, Helen featuring prominently in each one. Where are my things? I asked quietly. I packed them, Helen said defensively. They're in the garage. I was making room for the babies. Get out. I turned to face her. Get out of my home right now. James. She looked at her son desperately. Tell her. But James had nothing left. He stood there holding Lily's car seat like a life preserver, realizing too late that he'd tied himself to the wrong rescue boat. "I think you should go, Mom," he said quietly. "You said," Helen's voice went shrill. "You said she trapped you. You said you wanted out. You said, Mom, please." But Helen wasn't done. She turned on me, vicious now. "He never loved you. He told me. You got pregnant on purpose to trap him. That baby probably isn't even his. DNA test." I cut her off. "Happy to do one. Today, if you want. Should I call the hospital? I'm sure they'd be interested to know that James apparently thinks our daughter isn't his." James went pale. "I never said that." "No. Then why is your mother suggesting it?" I was done. Done with both of them. "Deputy Martinez, I want her removed from my property. I'll be filing a restraining order this afternoon." It took another 20 minutes to get Helen out. She left screaming about grandparents' rights, about how I'd regret this, about how James would leave me anyway. The neighbors watched it all, Mrs. Chen's daughter capturing every moment for the evening news. When she was finally gone, when the sheriff had left with a report number for my restraining order, when the neighbors had dispersed with promises of support and casseroles, I stood in my rearranged living room with my husband and our baby. "Clarissa," James started. "No." I held up my hand. "You have 10 minutes to explain why I shouldn't kick you out too. 10 minutes to explain why you thought ambushing your 3-day postpartum wife with eviction was acceptable. 10 minutes to convince me not to call every divorce lawyer in the state." He sank onto Helen's ugly floral couch, still clutching Lily's carrier. "I don't know what happened. She showed up while you were in labor. Said she was just here to help. But then she started talking about how hard it was going to be, how you'd probably have postpartum depression, how it would be better if she was here full-time. And you believed her? She's my mom. The excuse of weak men everywhere. She said she knew best, said you'd be overwhelmed, said exactly what she needed to say to get control. I took Lily from her car seat, needing to hold my daughter. And you let her. You gave her our house key. You let her change our locks. You stood there while she called me a single mother. I'm sorry." He was crying now, but I felt nothing. "I'm so sorry. I panicked. Being a dad, it's terrifying, and Mom made it sound like. Like what? Like stealing my home while I was giving birth was reasonable? Like changing the locks was normal? Like standing behind her while she tried to make me homeless with a newborn was acceptable?" He had no answer. "You're going to call a locksmith," I said calmly. "Today. New locks, new keys. Your mother never gets a copy. Then you're going to call a moving company and get all her things out of here. Every ugly cushion, every reorganized item, every picture of you as a child goes back to her house." "Okay. Yes. Of course. Then you're going to therapy. Individual and couples. You're going to figure out why you thought this was acceptable. Why you chose your mother over your wife and child. Why you're so terrified of being a father that you'd rather destroy our family than try. We can fix this," he said desperately. "I love you. I love Lily. I got scared and Mom was there saying all these things and you believed her over me. Your wife. The woman who just gave birth to your child." I adjusted Lily against my chest, feeling her tiny heartbeat. "I don't know if we can fix this, James. I don't know if I want to. But I know I'm not leaving this house, and neither is our daughter. You want to run to Mommy? Go ahead. But Lily and I stay here." He nodded miserably. "I'll fix it. I'll fix everything." But we both knew some things couldn't be fixed. Trust, once broken, leaves scars. The image of him standing behind his mother while she tried to evict me would forever be seared into my memory. The fact that he'd planned this while I was in labor, while I was at my most vulnerable, would always be there between us. The locksmith came that evening. Mrs. Chen brought dinner and held Lily while I ate, clucking disapprovingly at the changes Helen had made. Other neighbors stopped by, offering support and sharing their own horror stories about invasive in-laws. The news ran the story, Mrs. Chen's daughter told me. Public opinion is not in Helen's favor. Or James's. Good. Let them be infamous. Let everyone know what they'd tried to do. That night, I put Lily in her crib, the one James had assembled wrong 3 times, and stood in her nursery. My soft yellow walls were unchanged. Apparently, Helen hadn't gotten to this room yet. Small mercies. James slept on the couch, the ugly floral one his mother had chosen. I lay in our bed, nursing our daughter, and wondered if our marriage could survive this betrayal. If I wanted it to. My phone buzzed with texts from family, friends who'd seen the news. Support, outrage, offers of help. But the one that made me cry was from my sister in Portland. Saw the news. I have a guest room and a good lawyer. Whatever you need. I didn't need a guest room. This was my home, bought with my money too, filled with my memories, my dreams. Helen Thompson had tried to steal it while I was at my most vulnerable, and she'd failed. But she'd succeeded in showing me who James really was. Not the man who'd cried at our daughter's birth, but the boy who still couldn't stand up to his mother, who'd rather destroy his family than disappoint her. The restraining order was filed the next day. Helen was banned from our property, from contacting me directly. She could see Lily only if James arranged it elsewhere. The news coverage ensured everyone in town knew what she'd done. But the real consequence was in my marriage. Trust, once shattered, is hard to rebuild. Every time James left the house, I wondered if he was planning another ambush. Every time his phone rang, I wondered if it was Helen, plotting another attack. Therapy helped slowly. James began to understand the depth of his betrayal, the lifetime of enabling that had led to that moment. He cut contact with Helen for 3 months, choosing his family over his mother for the first time in his life. But some wounds don't heal clean. Some betrayals leave scars that ache when the weather changes, reminders of the time you stood on your own porch, bleeding and exhausted, while your husband let his mother try to steal your life. Lily is 6 months old now. She's crawling, laughing, lighting up our home with joy. James is a good father, attentive and loving. He's trying to be a good husband too, but we both know something fundamental broke that day. Helen still sends letters through her lawyer, demanding grandparent time, claiming I've poisoned her son against her. Each one goes straight to my attorney, evidence for the harassment file. The neighbors still check on me, especially Mrs. Chin. The story became local legend. The new mother who stood her ground, who refused to be erased from her own life. And late at night, when I'm nursing Lily in the chair I chose for her nursery, in the house I refuse to leave, I think about strength. About the moment you realize you're stronger than the people trying to break you. About the power of standing your ground, even when you're standing in mesh underwear, 3 days postpartum, facing down the monster-in-law who thought you'd be easy prey. She thought wrong. They both did. This is my home. My daughter. My life. And no one, not Helen, not James, not anyone, will ever make me doubt that again.